Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or whenever you should happen to find this. This is the Quote of Arms podcast, a special 10th episode. Because I release these in bursts of 10, and so this is the last episode of this season. And we got a special one here because we got two wonderful folks. So I am J-Ro, the Unsummoned Skull, host with the most. And I'm joined by Kalkris, who is...
Hey there, I'm Josh Nelson, aka Kalkris. You can find me on Twitter at burning_inquiry or on bleedingcool.com.
Also joined by Thicccboiii, who is...
Yeah, I'm Mike, also known as Thicccboiii, 3C's, 3 Eyes. You can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd, where I review movies, and Instagram, where I take pictures of my face and post them for the internet.
Awesome, and it is a very pretty face, I might say. So,
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. So, what tribe are we here to discuss today?
My sweet baby goblins. My sweet children.
So, what are these?
Goblin King.
The Goblin King. That's actually, it's funny because that's what my friends call me in my IRL pod.
I guess that's who names you Goblin King. Nice.
Nice. Hopefully it's a title that's well deserved. So, what are these goblins like?
Goblins are they're so goofy. Kalkris, go ahead and take this one over.
So typically the most common defining features of a goblin are that they're typically green. They're typically big-eared, big-nosed, short guys. And gals, I suppose, too. There are some different features among goblins from plane to plane in Magic, but most of the time, those are the defining features that will often, link them.
Did you say they're green?
Of course. Yeah, they're typically green, but they can vary in color either way.
You mean green like their skin color?
Yes.
Okay,
However,
okay.
I will also mention that they are typically red aligned when it comes to magic and mana. So
Okay, there we go.
huge one.
Yeah, big difference there.
They have an affinity for artifacts. They're always tinkering with things. Pretty self-destructive too. Goblins really don't have any sense of self-preservation in any sense of the word when it comes to just how they live their lives.
And it leads to some hilarious flavor text.
Oh yeah, it's Goblin Garden is the best one.
What does that one say?
Oh, it's changed. I was saying just the flavor of Goblin.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant the flavor text of it. Okay.
Or a Goblin Bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's just a bomb strapped to a goblin being thrown at somebody.
Yep. Goblin Sledder, Prospector, a Skirk Prospector.
Yep. That boy puts in work in Krinko.
Yep.
And in Muxus too, which is the deck I tend to run. Anyway.
Yep.
So all those cards that we were talking. Yeah, so all those cards we were talking about involve sacrificing in some way, which has a lot to do. I mean, one of the cards that was big when I had just started because damage went on the stack was the Mog Fanatic.
Oh yeah.
Mog Fanatic would sacrifice to deal a damage to any target, and when damage went on the stack, that meant that it could block a two toughness creature and then sack itself and kill the 2 toughness creature, which it can't do anymore unless it has Death Touch.
Yep.
Yeah, I do not envy the days of damage going on the stack.
Yeah, no, it was dark times.
Oh yeah, but
it was horrid.
That was how I got to understand what goblins did. They sack themselves to do stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things like that too. There's I think it's Goblin Shenanigans or Mog Shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
I believe is the card. Where
maybe I think Boggart Shenanigans from
Boggart Shenanigans.
Yeah, Boggart.
Yeah.
Which is weird because goblins go by a couple different names throughout Magic. They're Boggarts, Mogs, Goblins.
The Chiron from Arcadia.
There's the Aki from Kamigawa, which was when I started. And a lot of it has to do with the lore to which they're attached.
Yep, the Boggart are more Laurelwind, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
So Bugger, yeah, Lorwyn and Eventide, and then they changed when it got to Shadowmoor and whatever the other.
And Eventide. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
'cause there was some
Morningtide,
weird-
Morningtide. So Lorwyn and Morningtide. I always forget about
Yeah.
Morningtide for whatever reason.
Yeah, I was gonna say, wasn't there a shift on that plane? That,
Yeah.
caused it-
I get
Dark.
Morningtide and Eventide confused.
It's alright, no worries.
Mhm.
But speaking on that, Lorwyn's goblins were all about like sensation and like just feeling things. They were empaths of the highest degree. And then when Lorwyn turned into Shadowmoor, they became just gluttons, complete gluttons, hungry, ravenous monsters. And that's very similar to the rest of Shadowmoor for the most part.
I will say one of my favorite goblin commanders was the green-red wart from Shadowmoor. Now, yeah, she's a glutton, but that deck is just so decadent. I can see how she became a glutton.
Oh, absolutely. Perfectly fair.
Boggart Auntie.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah.
Those kids with her are just they're weird looking. I don't like them.
Yeah, they got like these oblong shaped heads.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something I'd want to wake up to. Like, it's horrid, scary. Oh, I'm gonna put that away now.
Yeah, and then you have the
But,
Aki who basically look like meatballs with arms and legs.
Yeah, they're very similar to Kappa from the Japanese mythologies.
Mm-hmm.
It
That's
looks
where
like
a
they
lot
got
of
like
their
a shell on them.
yeah, exactly. It's like a turtle shell.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Kappa were like these duck turtle things with like a bowl on their head and it in their head, I guess, which carried like some kind of sacred water. And if they ever lost that water, they were like to the beck and call of the person who made them lose that water from their head.
Interesting.
And then what is it? The Tarkir goblins are kind of weird looking. They got like flat faces, real sharp teeth.
Really forgot about that for a second.
Yep.
It's a Goblin Slide, I think, is another one of my favorite because it's one of my favorites because it's another Goblin token producer. I think it's whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you can pay a colorless and make a goblin.
And those goblins kind of resemble tiny yetis in a way. If Goblin Slide is anything to go by.
Yeah, and there were a few. There was also the 3 mana make 3 goblins, which is where I remember that one being.
Yeah, that's a great card.
Wow! It was Dragon Fodder, which was originally from Scars, I think.
No, it was from Shards of Alara, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Shards of Alara. Yeah.
With the Jund. Oh, then there's that, of course. Jund goblins typically resemble like vermin, like little mammalian vermin in a way.
And they would
Almost
just get
rat-like.
devoured.
Exactly. The apex predators of the plane, the dragons.
Yeah, that's a sad life, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, that's so sad. And then there's goblins everywhere. Like
Oh yeah.
I can't think of any sets that don't have like at least one goblin in it.
I mean, it's interesting. Strixhaven had no goblin creature type creatures, but they did have goblins in the world because I think there's one instant reject, which has a goblin being rejected from applying to Strixhaven Academy.
Once again, the poor
They're-
thing.
Looks like Amon Ket didn't have any goblins. Ikoria, call time.
True.
Yeah.
Ixalan had some though. They were very like ape-like.
Wait, which one?
Ixalan.
Oh wait, which one? Oh yeah, Ixalan
Pirates
did
and
have
Guns?
yeah. Ixalan had the monkey goblins.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think Kaladesh had goblins, but they did have gremlins, which is distinct in Magic.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the goblins been everywhere. It's so weird. They change all the time.
Gremlins are kind of like anteaters.
Yeah, very true. Although I will say that, like in other games, if I may divert for a second,
Absolutely.
a lot of different fantasy properties have their own, like, as they call the greenskin race. So, like, Games Workshop has their orcs and a couple of goblins as well. Magic has their goblins and some orcs, sort of in a role reversal of sorts. And Weird Miniatures or Weird Games has gremlins, and they're like very much like goblins, just without any noses.
Yeah, D&D has goblins as like normal early game creatures alongside kobolds. And kobolds can be deadly.
So
yeah, when I first started, that's one thing. Like, I seen like this is before I knew like the different like creatures. Like when I first started Magic, I seen a token for a kobold and a goblin, and I was like, I don't see how these aren't the same thing. Like this again, this is all before I knew like in depth like creatures and whatnot.
I'm not entirely certain what would create that distinction between kobolds and goblins. That maybe in like a D&D terminology. I'm not entirely certain even then.
So the biological difference is that kobolds are more draconic. They're kind of like mini lizards. Well, not mini lizards, but humanoid lizards. But not big enough to be lizard folk. They're like diminutive lizard folk. I guess you could say they're like the halflings of lizard folk.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I see the draconic look to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I would suggest that as diverse as they are in the lore of Magic, they're also very diverse in the mechanics. And I was going to bring this up that I have already like lumped maybe like 5 different mechanical archetypes. I've lumped like a lot of Goblin commanders into that. That like what's the word? Taxonomy, I suppose. You have your aggro archetype, your aristocrats, your spell slingers, your combo, and even some stacks. So, I would suggest that a lot of like mono red would fall under aggro, or even aristocrats. But spell slinger and combo is a lot more diverse.
So, who are some of the aggro generals or commanders?
I would suggest that Muxus Goblin Grandee and both kinds of Krenko decks are typically aggro.
Yeah, they those two can be pretty aggro. Pashlik Mons tends to be like more like.
I'd say he's aristocrats. Yeah, aristocrats combo.
Combo.
So let's go one at a time. So what do these do? Let's start off with probably the most quintessential, which would be the Krankos.
Okay. I'll take over my sweet boy Krenko Mob Boss. So Krenko Mob Boss is 2 red for 3/3. Tap, create X 1/1 Goblin creature tokens, where X is the number of goblins you control. So Krenko doubles up your army with every tap. We can talk about this a little later, but I take my Krenko deck in a very different direction from what other people do. The other Krenko 10th Street Kingpin is 2 and a red for a 1/2. Whenever Krenko 10th Street Kingpin attacks, put a 1/1 counter on it. They create a number of 1/1 Goblin creature tokens equal to Krenko's power. So this one is pretty aggro. You just want to basically pump him up as much as possible, probably using some cantrips and make your small army and swing in.
So what both of those seem to have in common is that they use token strategies to multiply your creatures exponentially.
Yes. Yeah, Mob Boss is definitely faster than 10th Street, but also Mob Boss puts a target on your back just because of how fast you can make goblins with it. And then, Kalkris, if you want to take over Muxus, because
yeah, absolutely. So I run a Muxus deck, which is I would say Muxus Goblin Grandee, who is a 4/4 for 6 Goblin Noble, legendary, of course. Muxus values, I would say, quality of goblins over the sheer critical mass of goblin tokens, and here's what it does. When Muxus Goblin Grandy enters the battlefield, you reveal the top 6 cards of your library and put all goblin creatures with converted mana cost, or mana value nowadays, of 5 or less from among them onto the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Plus, when it attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each other goblin you control. My thought about Muxus, and again, we can get into this later, but Muxus tends to like to have a bunch of like non-token goblins entering the fray from its enter the battlefield effect. It values that quality over the sheer quantity that Krenko tends to have.
Mm-hmm.
Would you consider Zeta in the aggro category as well?
I personally would not. I would put her more as a spell slinger alongside Wart the Raid Mother, as we mentioned, and Mizzix is Magnus.
Here's where I would separate them, though, because those two are... So the other two that you mentioned are ones where you're going to have the bulk of your deck being non-creature spells. With Zeta, though, the bulk of the deck is going to be ways to make zombie tokens. And then there are also ways to grant them haste or pump them, which sound like things aggressive decks would do. I say this because that's my goblin deck.
I see
In that case, you know Zada well enough.
Yeah, Zeta's the one that I know pretty well because I have played it before. It's one of my mono red decks that I play on mono red Mondays. Although I don't play it as often as the others, but like their cards like Assault Strobe and just giving an Uncaged Fury and such.
Yeah.
Crimson Wisps to give everything haste, yeah.
Of
So
course.
the goal of that deck is to go wide and then to mass pump or mass haste and just smash people, which sounds pretty aggressive.
Absolutely.
It's primarily tokens, secondarily pumped just to push through the damage. So Zeta, the way that it usually winds up playing, I think, is more along the aggro line.
Which I think makes sense. I think we had spoken before any of the podcast has started about I think Thicccboiii and I had spoken about this, or it was somewhere else actually entirely. No, I had spoken about this with someone else, but how no one commander in this sort of taxonomy of goblins is only good at one thing in particular, maybe with a couple of exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, yeah, Zada could be a spell slinger or aggro, depending on how you build.
I think the one that stands out for me personally, kind of switching gears here, is Shattergang Brothers. Not typically Goblin tribal, but the commander is Goblin, and it is definitely a stacks deck because you are preventing other people from playing their cards and keeping their board state clear of everything but lands.
The other one that could be considered a stacks type commander, I think, is Zozu the Punisher.
Yeah, Zozu.
It is more group slug, but you can certainly build it in a stack style, especially if you use like Storm Cauldron.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dingus Egg. Book of Mishra is something I would be thinking about for that too. Also, you could play a Duretti Scrap Savant like that too. Bunch of stacksy artifacts. I mean, while he's not a goblin in card type, he's still, I would say he still specifies.
Mm-hmm.
He's a goblin.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a goblin.
And he allows you to use some other goblins like Welder that otherwise wouldn't be in any of these aggressive shells.
Mm-hmm. And which is cool because I use Welder in my Krenko deck, and I don't consider my Krenko deck an aggro, or at least going in an aggro direction anymore.
So we mentioned that Krenko is a very much it's the archetypical goblin commander. It's the one that basically does the goblin thing, if we're going to call the goblin thing, making a massive board and smashing people in the face. It does it pretty. It's pretty much the quintessential goblin for that. So, what makes your Krenko special?
So I'm taking my Krenko and pushing it as high powered as I can possibly get it. It'll never be CEDH viable, but I'm pushing it to at least an 8 or a 9 by turning it into a combo deck. So before I decided to do this, my Krenko was an aggro deck. Give everything haste. Put in Goblin King. Goblin War Chief. The ones that basically the lords, the Goblin lords, and just swing in for a million damage with a million goblins. Whereas now, my Krenko deck is going towards more of the create infinite goblins and win just by making goblins with your Purphoros, with your Goblin Bombardment, using a Mana Echoes and Umbral Mantle combo or Staff of Domination combo. So it has definitely become more of a combo deck than an aggro deck. And it's typically like this was the deck that all my friends and in person would be like, oh god, he's playing Krenko. But now I don't even pull it out anymore because it's just gonna run him over every single time.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing it. It might have been on a Mono Red Monday.
Yep, I made a joke then when I was like, oh man, I'm the worst Krenko mob boss player. You guys are still alive by turn 3, but that is legitimately the goal of that deck.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was dead by turn 6, and that was the right call because turn 7 I would have had infinite goblins and won.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's definitely I'm definitely pushing it towards the higher end 8 or 9, and I'm not using as many of the goblins that Muxus would use. I don't use many, like, I guess you can call them feel good goblins, lord goblins.
Works. That works.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a that deck is a Corvette. That deck is a Corvette. It's lightning fast and gets the job done very quickly.
That reminds me of the analogy I was using to describe how I felt bad about putting like high-powered cards into decks. Because it felt like in many cases I was putting like a Porsche engine into a Ford.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Again, my combo kills are Purphoros, Goblin Bombardment. What's the other one? Not Warstorm Surge, but
Bombardment.
The cheaper one. The cheaper version of Warstorm Surge, which name I'm forgetting currently.
Pandemonium.
No, it's I don't know. It doesn't
Impact
matter
Tremors?
in a second, but Impact Tremors. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a combo kill, and like if that doesn't work, then I have infinite goblins and we'll win the next turn if they don't already have haste.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a nightmare to play against because I've experienced it one time and I was like, yeah, I won't do that again.
Yeah.
I let my friend play it. And I was like, God, that's what that feels like.
Yep.
Oh man.
I think there was an American Dad where the guy stabbed himself and said, "Is that what I've been doing to people? I belong here."
Yeah, for real. But I like how Muxus plays. Muxus does play a lot of the feel good goblins, don't they?
I would say so. I know that I'm running the War Chief, the Goblin King, Goblin Matron, but I think that you'd probably run that as well, perhaps.
Oh yeah.
I run a Trash Master, Chieftain. I mean, all sorts, really. My deck happens to run a conspicuous Snoop line, which is fueled by a Goblin Recruiter. And that can get nasty really easily. The line, I believe, is, if I don't already have them out, it's like, I believe it is, Prospector, Skirk Prospector into, at some point, Krenko Mob Boss, which is where I guess a little bit of a mission has to be here that Krenko is a very good goblin. Mm-hmm. Into, at some point, Pashalik Mons has to be the final goblin of my line. because then I'm making a metric ton of goblins and sacrificing them while Pashalik Mons is in play, so you have that aristocrat's sort of deal to it, where if a goblin I control dies, Pashalik Mons will deal damage to any target.
Yep.
Also, that I can make more and more goblins by just sacrificing goblins. So.
Mm-hmm.
Get a return on investment.
Exactly.
There's also a lot of goblins that you can play that I couldn't necessarily play. Well, I could, but it wouldn't make any sense. Like, there's the goblins that their power and toughness are equal to the number of goblins, like Battle
Oh,
Slaughter.
the reckless one, right?
Yeah, reckless one. Like, those would make sense in a Muxus deck versus my Kranko deck because
I can power them up pretty well.
Yeah, they'll be huge, and you can probably get them through for damage.
Yeah. Oddly enough, I don't actually run Reckless One or Horde of Boggarts for that matter, Battle Squadron, etc. But it's definitely an idea and something I should take into consideration.
Oh yeah, it's just like I when I first started my Kranko deck, that's what I had in there, and then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make this even more degenerate than Kranko already is. But yeah, we do run almost the same suite of cards with like Goblin Matron, Goblin Recruiter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because it's just good to have the feel goods goblins exactly where you need them right then and there.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I also run a Magus of the Moon for a little bit of staxing because my meta is very much is very reliant on non-basic lands, and not all of those decks are red. So hey, a little bit of So furthermore, I run Chaos Sphere in order to stop flyers in their tracks. For those who don't know, Chaos Sphere is a 3-mana enchant world with creatures without flying have reach, and creatures with flying cannot block creatures without flying. So it sort of flips the gravity on its head. Tech for dealing with flyers.
Also has some creepy art.
Oh yeah, the art is really weird. I think I did use that against you at least once, Coach.
I don't think so. I don't think I've ever seen it cast. I do have a couple copies. I don't think I've ever seen it actually cast.
Oh wow. I'm getting my games mixed up, I suppose.
Someday, though.
Absolutely.
Someday we'll see it cast.
Yeah, you can expect it.
It's still kind of funny that the green, canopy, whatever it was, says a canopy card, and green that damages any creature attacking with flying. They still have flying, they just doesn't operate the same way.
Yeah.
So now they're damaged, and you can block them. So I have weird combos like that in my... I have a Spellslinger deck that is not somebody that you would usually think of as a Spellslinger commander. It's Rurik Thar. But the goal of the deck is... That's a spicy one. The goal of that deck is to give Rurik Thar lifelink.
That's amazing.
Just watch the rest of the table squirm as you can cast whatever you want. They double Helix if they cast anything that isn't a creature.
I want to see that. That sounds interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I don't play the deck often. It's not in my... Well, it is in my unsummoned decks because I use some unsummon effects to... If I can't give him lifelink, I'll just bounce him on my turn. But I don't use that one often. But back to the Gobos. So, thoughts on Ib Halfheart?
Okay, yeah. So Ib Halfheart is a Goblin Advisor that you can... Actually, let me just... Get him up real quick on my...
I got him right here.
Oh, perfect.
Ib Halfheart is 3 in a red for 3/2 Goblin Advisor. Whenever another goblin you control becomes blocked, sacrifice it. If you do, it deals 4 damage to each creature blocking it. Sacrifice 2 mountains. Put 2 1/1 goblin creature tokens into play. I don't think I've seen this one time.
I do run it in my Zeta deck because it makes goblin tokens.
That seems interesting, but I don't know, personally, I could never see myself running this. Because when I'm playing like mono red, like every other mono red deck out there, I have so few lands I couldn't justify sacrificing 2 mountains.
It
I
goes a
think
little
for
bit.
like a final alpha strike though, it'd be pretty good.
Yeah, it goes a little bit into my deck building theory where if I'm playing an aggressive deck, I cut mana rocks. I don't cut lands. So my Zeta deck still has 40 lands.
Hmm.
So I still have plenty of lands to sack. Also, if I'm going into, as was mentioned, a final alpha strike, I'll do things like if I can pump my creatures, give them haste, assault stroke maybe. It doesn't really matter how many lands I have left if the table's dead.
True. True.
Then one person fogs and I go like, oh shit.
Well, there goes that.
Yeah, but goblins are here for a good time, not for a long time, right?
Exactly. Which is why I was dead on turn 6. I said this during that game. It's not the first time. It won't be the last.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. There's some goblins out there that like they're good in other decks, but they don't make good commanders like Squee.
Yeah.
Like Squee. I can't see a deck being built around Squee.
Which Squee?
The Immortal.
Okay. Squee the Immortal,
I've,
maybe, but probably
Like
not.
Squee the Immortal is an excellent combo piece.
Mm-hmm.
In like food chain, but I don't know. I don't think I would be amazed to see that as a deck. And then Tuck is the other one.
I've used Squee Goblin Nabob, I think actually more than Squee the Immortal. One of the things I've liked to do with Squee Goblin Nabob before is I have it in a mutate deck. So I can so I'll always have something that I can mutate onto.
Oh yeah. I use the Bob as well. Like if I'm gonna use either of the Squeeze, I use it for discard fodder.
Mm-hmm.
As he should be. Like for Jaya Ballard Taskmaster.
Yeah, I think I used to have a Jaya Ballard Taskmaster deck because she's a spell shaper, so she discards in order to to essentially cast spells.
Yep.
So I used to have her in a Phoenix travel deck. So I'd have a lot of Phoenixes that could come back from the graveyard, and she would just discard them, and I could reanimate them.
Yeah.
No, I won't ever cast Gamble in like my Nor in the Wary deck unless I have a Squee in hand, just for the security of it.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta be wary.
There you go.
Then there's like we can count Morathon, but
Yeah, we could.
that wouldn't be too fun. Also, Corvold. Corvold is a good, not a goblin per se, but a good goblin commander. Just because you need fodder. It kind of lives on the Jund like flavor.
Yeah, absolutely. Sacrificing goblins for fun and profit. Hey, it doesn't hurt.
They like it. Don't care.
I suppose they like it.
I mean, I don't see any of them complaining.
Objection!
Ah, true.
What was the Goblin Kaboomist?
Oh, that boom. One thing that I've noticed in researching for this episode is that there are no strictly red-white goblin legends go by.
No, there's not. There's just like the ones from they're Boros goblins are from the plane, but Ravnica.
This is true. You have the Goblin Legionnaire, I believe, is the one. Then you have a bunch of red goblins from Boros without any real white mana ties, but may as well be in there. Like I would think Goblin Warboss. There's a bit for that. I'm actually blanking on others, but
there's Boros Recruit. There's Legion Loyalist.
That was the one I was thinking. Legion Loyalist.
Yep.
That's what I blanked on. Yeah.
So in terms of red-white goblins, Goblin Legionnaire was one of the old school ones. There's also there were also hobgoblins in Eventide, but not a lot of them. And yeah, there's only I think four. There's Boros Recruit, Goblin Legionnaire, Hearthfire Hobgoblin, Hobgoblin Dragoon, and that's it.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad for them on Ravnica because the ones that are in the Boros guild, like they're treated as like they're what am I trying to say here? Goblins, yeah, like goblins themselves treat each other like garbage, but like the Boros guild treats them like actual trash. Kind of sad.
Yeah, Razia.
I'm actually.
On Boros Recruit, Razia's flavor text. Look at this goblin, once wild, untamed, and full of idiocy. The Boros have given him the skill of a soldier and focused his heart with a single cause.
I was just looking at that, and I was going to say the same thing. It's straight up racism in terms of goblins and I guess angels, because Razi's the one who's the quote attributed to.
Mm-hmm.
It's like really sad to see.
Yeah.
Hopefully, they're treated better in the future, but.
Yeah, hopefully after helping to fight off friggin' Bolas.
Yeah.
Sticking on Ravnica for just a second, I think my favorite bit of like trivia is the fact that Krenko's command, the two goblins in that artwork, are in the back of Krenko Mob Boss.
Oh, neat.
I love that little connection, and it feels good every time I cast that.
Wow. Yeah. Looking at that, that's absolutely stupid.
It's so cool.
Really cool.
Yeah, goblins, they're a goofy breed, and I love them so much. There were you guys want to get into why we like goblins?
Sure.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Want to start us off, Thicccboiii?
Yeah. So goblins were actually my very first deck that I made myself when I started playing Magic. I made I guess you could call it a Legacy Goblins deck. It was pretty bad. I think it was like it was the first deck I've ever built like by myself, and I think I was running 2 copies of Krenko Mob Boss, and then I had a Goblin Assault. Like it was me running a Krenko Commander deck, but in a Legacy setting. And I've tried to tweak it over time. I actually still have it because it's kind of close to my heart. And goblins are actually how my friends got me into Magic. I could see you as a goblin player, and they were right.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, they were my first deck, and they're my little babies.
There you go, your little green babies.
my little green ugly babies that I love to throw into fires.
I'm in a similar position here in that it was my first deck as well. Back in 2001, I started playing at the counsel and advice of a friend of mine during 7th edition, and he gifted me the Infestation theme deck, which was just this 40-card little thing with mono red with 2 particular rares: Trained Orc and Goblin King. While Trained Orc seems to be like the deck-building trap to end all deck-building traps, Goblin King actually helped me win quite a few games. And then, if you fast forward to, like, I would say 2007 or 8, I think it was Time Spiral Lorwyn Standard. One Tide wasn't out yet, but my friend and I, another friend of mine, we had built decks based around the Lorwyn tribes of elves and goblins, respectively. And I managed to take it to an extended tournament, which is older format that is no longer in support, I guess. But I managed to take it, and I got a 2nd place standing. Again, I think I only lost against a Ravager Affinity deck or something along those lines. It's such a good feeling, winning with these goblins, like old times, So, very special.
Yeah, like when I first started, they were telling me about like different deck archetypes, and they go, red deck wins. I'm like, why is it called red deck wins? And then I built the goblin deck, and I was like, oh, this is why they call it that.
Perfect. Special.
Mm-hmm. They're close to my heart, and like I said on the mono, gameplay that we had. They're my favorite. They're the best, and I will not hear any arguments against it.
Nice. So, is there anything about the goblin lore or how goblins are portrayed in the card or art that connects with you?
I think for me, it's a tie to this whole family, uh, I guess, dynamic. While goblins are often seen as very disorganized and even a little bit almost comically violent, they also have this huge loyalty to family. It seems like you see all these warrens and see all the goblins within them just sort of being close and being very territorial, happy to protect their home at all costs. And it's something that, I mean, I personally haven't had, but I've always admired, I guess, goblins for, in a weird roundabout sort of way.
The close family aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of the opposite. I just look at all the artwork, and I'm like, these are some just chaotic, stupid idiots, and I love them. Like, I don't know why I like just self-destructive little creatures, but I just think it's probably the funniest thing is when they're just recklessly stupid, or when something's recklessly stupid. Like, especially like when I was watching like The Hobbit, at one point they get to like the Goblin King and the goblins and everything. They're just throwing themselves off these platforms to get after them, and I'm like, that's why. Like, it's something that it's these creatures that just have no sense of self-preservation, and just kind of don't care. They're just goblins are just like they just vibe. They just vibe and do things.
So, it
Like,
sounds like, do you connect a little bit more to the Lorwyn Eventide goblins? Impulsive. Do you connect a little bit more to the Lorwyn Eventide goblins? You just want to sense everything, feel everything, or Lorwyn Morningtide. Sorry, you just want to sense everything, do everything, feel everything. Why are we going to do this? Because we've never done it before. Why not?
Pretty much, like, pretty much, like, my favorite goblin card is Goblin Bombardment. It's Goblin Bombardment or Goblin Bomb. I said it earlier, just because it's so pointless. They're just like they just do it to do it. They want to experience it. Like, yeah, will I come out of there? Probably not, but let's do it. Like Goblin Bomb, it's a bomb strapped to a goblin. There's no reason for the goblin to be there. He's just there. And it's also like my favorite flavor card because you have to sacrifice the goblin to even cast that spell.
Mm-hmm.
Goblin Grenade, right?
Oh, that's what I meant to say. Yeah, Goblin Grenade. Yeah, not Goblin Bomb.
All good.
Yeah, I love it. They're just vibing, doing things. So yeah, I guess I haven't experienced like too much of the Laurelwind goblins, but if they are just like head empty, no thoughts, just vibes goblin, then yeah, that's what I'm here for.
They certainly do vibe.
One of the goblins I've made for D&D is a goblin druid who was kicked out of his clan and wants to. He's kicked out of his clan and actually had 2 fingers removed by the leader of the clan because he refused to take part in roadside ambushes. So his goal is to take out. It's to kill the leader of the clan. So basically depose the leader of the clan, take over control of the clan, and turn them into farmers. To show the world that they're not just heartless savages.
See, I never got into D&D. Like, it's not something that I really like. I could never play it for some reason, but I would want to make a goblin that is reminiscent to the goblins that I described.
Mm-hmm.
Just something that's chaotic, stupid.
Oh yeah. Oh, and there's plenty of room for that. D&D gets a lot easier when you view it as more of an algorithm, and then basically once you get the thinking out of the way, you just vibe in it like that.
But yeah, that's like if I was ever going to play, if I said I was going to play, I know at least 3 of my friends would be doing backflips, but I would be like, okay, but I need to be a chaotic stupid goblin. Like that's my stipulation. I need you guys to show me how to make this work.
Well, there is plenty of room for chaotic stupid. I was just on a podcast where I had I had a rock gnome with a rock gnome artificer who had a giant warhammer. Basically, the bad guy blinded everybody or put out this blinding area. So, you know what? If I can't tell where you are, I'm gonna kill everything in the room as long as you're one of them. And they just took the warhammer and hit the statue that was in front of them, just to make the rocks fall in the hopes that it would crush the enemy.
Wow.
That's what I would. That's what I would do. That's exactly what it'd be. It'd be like intelligence 0, luck like I don't know if luck is a thing in D&D, but I'd be like, okay, I want my luck like super high, intelligence low, like painfully low.
Luck is actually a feat that you can have.
Oh, there we go. It'd be like I'd make a goblin that's like dumber than bricks, but like, what's the not actual legendary goblin, but like the goblin on Mirrodin that was an artificer.
Slowbad.
Is that the name?
Slowbad, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I would make one like that, but like really dumb. Like really good, like tinkering with things, but like really dumb and very lucky.
Goblin artificer could work. And artificers do have a subclass called an artillerist. So you can be a giant, or you can be a goblin who makes cannons and explosives, and that is perfectly well within the rules of the game.
My friends. I can't let my friends listen to this podcast now because they're going to force me to play D&D. Oh God.
Oh, the seed has been planted.
Yep.
It has.
Yeah, well, I am a DM, so.
Tell me you can be a stupid goblin and blow things up. Oh my God. That's
Yeah.
everything I want.
It's a playable race, and that is a playable class and subclass.
God, I'm gonna have to have a discussion now.
Then luck as a feat would work.
There you go.
Oh God.
Oh God.
A discussion's gonna be had. Anyways.
So, if you could design a goblin legend, what would it look like?
Let me think on this one.
This wasn't listed on the on the docket. Let's see what we can think of here. I think I'd be inclined to make a red-white Boros goblin, honestly, but I'm not sure what it would do. I think more tokens would make sense, but then that would be stepping on the toes of many different goblin legends already.
So what do goblins really not have?
Goblins don't typically have protection, like, from anything. Like, goblins are real easily dealt with because they're real small.
Is that kind of the flavor of what goblins are supposed to be?
Yeah, but I don't know. We're seeing Goblin Electromancer, and there's the Drool Electromancer that I forgot what it's called, where it's kind of getting into the
an Archimancer.
Yeah. So like I would feel like since there's now like a precedent for like spell slinging goblins, like they could have like some sort of like, I don't know, protection of some kind.
Yeah.
What about battalion goblin?
Yeah. I actually think if we just promote Goblin War Boss to some kind of legendary status and make it part white, and like give it an ability that says like sacrifice a goblin that entered the battlefield this turn, something along those lines. Target goblin gains ward something. Maybe ward 1, so you can sacrifice a bunch of them to make them bigger.
So I was just gonna take my D&D character, my theoretical D&D character, and make it legendary.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be like goblins you control gain, and then have like the dice rolling mechanic that's coming out from Forbidden Realms.
Oh, nice.
So like you roll a 20, you get to keep the goblin, and it deals like 10 damage to target creature. You roll a 1, you sacrifice the goblin, something like that.
Wonder what the in-betweens would be.
What would be?
The in-between amounts. So you've got your crit success and failure.
So it'd probably be like, let's go with like 2 to 5. Sacrifice goblin, deal 1 damage to target creature. 6 to 10. Pretty much anything below 10, you'd sacrifice the goblin to deal a small amount of damage. Above 10, you get to keep the goblin, but it'd be a little bit higher. So I'm thinking maybe like 3 to 5 damage seems like a fair. Seems like it'd be a fair thing. And then the crit again would be like just some dummy amount of damage, to maybe 1 or 2 creatures or players. The crit would absolutely, like the higher end, like the 17 to 20 would definitely be creature or player. Maybe planes. No, I don't want to throw planeswalkers in there. But like it'd be creature to player. Below that would just be creature. I kind of like that actually. That'd be cool. It has to be like a tap ability though, because otherwise, I feel like you could just roll die at any point. I really like that idea. Go me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at that.
God, now I really can't let my friends listen to this podcast because they're gonna make me play D&D now.
Like we really would want to.
They're gonna be like, "Look, you already got the design down. Now you got to play."
Yep. Let's see. So man. I make horde decks that are played on Wednesdays now, and I have them for a variety of different tribes. One of them, so right now I do not have a goblin one because my red deck is elementals with Chandra. I have been working on one though, and it's not necessarily going to be mono red though. It's goblins, and then there are dragons that devour the goblins. So it's sort of based off of the Alara ones, the Jund ones.
Yeah.
So, if you were going to make a horde deck based around goblins, what sorts of things would you put in there?
So I have a very limited experience with horde, like almost none. I've just like done a little research on it.
So it'd start with a legendary creature or planeswalker that doesn't make tokens because the deck itself has tokens and doesn't draw cards.
And it plays spells for free, right?
It cast spells for free.
Okay. So if we're gonna do goblins and it's making tokens, one thing I could see it doing, which would be kind of devastating, is a card called Burn at the Stake.
Ooh.
Yeah, so Burn at the Stake, for those of you that don't know, is 2 red for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast Burn at the Stake, tap any number of untapped creatures you control. Burn at the Stake deals damage to target creature or player equal to 3 times the number of creatures tapped this way. So when I had my Krinko as a aggro deck going into combo, I definitely had that because it is a one-shot kill.
Mm-hmm.
almost all the time. So it would be devastating to somebody, and I'm not sure how to get worked out, but I would love to see that in it, because you could have just an unbelievable amount of goblins on the field in no time at all.
Yeah, it gets a cast for each player. I could see putting 4 of these in the deck, because it could potentially take out each player that way.
Yep.
But it all depends on when it hits that card.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you got like 2 goblins out, it's just 6 damage.
Mm-hmm.
But still, that could be a very devastating card nonetheless. Also, kind of like a Boggart Shenanigans type thing. So like, even if the goblins get taken out, you're still taking some damage.
Mm-hmm. And sort of makes their attacks in less dangerous.
Yeah, as well as is it Pashlik Mons is the other one, I believe.
Yeah,
does the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just some stuff like that. Like that'd be pretty decent to see in there. Again, devastating, but decent.
Yep.
Oh, we forgot about Thicccboiii.
I was just thinking that. How funny is that?
I was thinking of
We forgot all
Thicccboiii when you were talking about your lines in terms of top deck manipulation.
Yeah, that's huge for that. I forgot that. Oh my goodness.
Thicccboiii is disgusting.
Well, yeah, part of my Snoop line actually does involve Thicccboiii, because you copy the Snoop with the first Snoop. You can help it. You just make a ton of Snoops. And at that point, you sacrifice them to Prospector or Bombardment, and you have like Pashalik or Boggart Shenanigans do the rest.
So Thicccboiii does what?
Thicccboiii is a 2/2 for 5 mana that you can tap to have. Give me a second. You can copy, or make a token copy of a non-legendary creature you control that has haste, and you would sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. It itself haste.
And Thicccboiii's got a very, very long history of just being degenerate in Modern and Commander.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's the Zealous Conscripts, there's Philidor Guardian,
Restoration Angel.
Yep.
Lester Might, and what's the Exarch? Seaver Exarch. Yeah.
Yeah, Thicccboiii is horrendous when it comes to combos.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, in CEDH, Thicccboiii was part of the Flash Hulk combo, or at least one of the like 5,000 combos for Flash Hulk.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it was so bad. It was so bad.
Very strong.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Kiki being used with some of the Splinter Twin combos and such.
Similarly to, I think it's an adjacent card.
Yeah.
You would absolutely use that in there somewhere.
Yeah, it was used. Well, first off, it was used after Twin itself got banned, but even before then, it was used as additional copies of Twin. I think it was like 4 Twin, 2 of that, or something.
A little more reason. You know, the redundancies are a reason that I feel like Wizards should at least consider again the unbanning of Splinter Twin. No, is it that bad nowadays? That's a whole nother can of worms, though.
Yeah, and there are people still playing it. Like, people still playing. I'm not sure how. I know some people are playing Modern, but I still have a lot of my Modern decks together from when I was grinding for the Pro Tour, but I don't know how live we're gonna call that format.
It's hard because like I don't have much experience with Modern, but it's mainly because of the price. Like some of the prices of these Modern decks are getting out of hand.
Well, and playing in person.
And oh yeah, playing in person. Like
it's not arena supported.
Yeah.
For me, it was the dissolution of the Pro Tour, and when it became whatever they tried to make it, I lost interest. So I ground to get onto the Pro Tour, and when they got rid of the Pro Tour and replaced it with some weird convoluted thing that I couldn't understand, I stopped trying. But
that's one thing I kind of stayed out of that aspect of Magic. Like, I play mostly casual, but like there are like a few times I'm like, okay, I want to build a CEDH deck, and that's like the only competitive thing because there's no like actual money or anything on the line.
Yeah.
Yeah, Old School Extended did have an interesting goblin deck, which was Fecundity Goblins.
I'm gonna need a explanation on that.
So Fecundity, whenever a creature dies, no matter whose creature it was, that player draws a card. So what you would do is play a goblin, sack it to the prospector for a red, and then you just continually draw cards, and it was a way to have a card advantage engine in the goblin deck, while you still have the incredible mana coming from the prospector. So even if you didn't have dead on board, you could draw into it.
That's weird.
Interesting.
It's weird having goblins, or hearing about goblins have card advantage. It's an oxymoron almost.
Yeah. Well, there are ways
also.
there are ways to build it, like with Guardian Project and such. If you made a Gruul Goblins deck.
Yeah. Another thing that's weird is hearing a Goblin Mill, which is what my Krenko deck was. I had was it not Altar of the Brood?
Altar of Dementia.
Not Altar of Dementia. It's a 1-cost artifact. Whenever a permanent comes into play.
Okay, that's Altar of the Brood.
Oh yeah, okay, there you go. I had that. I think I milled out my friends like 4 times with that card out.
Wow.
Yeah, I was laughing so hard because I was like, mono red mill. I've never heard of that before.
I've seen mono red Storm, especially with Bergie.
Yep.
Yeah. Now I was going to say that there's a little bit of red bounce, and I'm thinking about the Goblin Sting Scourger that is basically a mana war with Echo. Now, when it comes into play, you return an opponent's creature to their hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have Sting Scourger in a few decks. Of course, it's an unsummon effect. I got to, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I bring it up.
Yep. So I have it in one of its places of honor is in my wheels deck, where I yeah. So that's where I wheel every. So it's a mono red deck that has wheels. It's Adamaru first to desire. So its power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in an opponent's hand. So I bounce your creature to your hand, make Adamaru bigger, fling him at you, things like that, and then wheel away the card that I bounced. So I used to do that with my Locust God deck, but I took that apart. So this still captures that idea of I bounce your guy and then I wheel it away so that you don't get to use it again. It's one of the ways, like, it's a mono red deck, but it can deal with an Avacyn.
Mm-hmm.
Because it'll Sting Scourger, bounce it back to your hand, and then wheel it away. Goodbye, Avacyn.
Also, one of the other finishers I had, again, before I transitioned into combo for Krenko was Click Slither, which is 1/3 red for a 3/3 insect, has haste, and specifically sacrifice a goblin.
Mm-hmm.
Click Slither gets +2/+2 and trample till the end of turn, so this thing would get massive very fast.
Loves the taste of goblin meat, I guess.
Yep. Very true. He's such a cute little boy if you like Aliens from the smash hit series Aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Does look a lot like a xenomorph. That is fair.
Yep.
So what would you say is your favorite goblin?
My boy. My sweet, sweet boy, Krenko. I like other goblins. I like other goblin art, but Krinko has always had a spot in my heart.
Yeah. So for me, I want to go ahead and say the joke answer, which is Morpo the Bard, but he doesn't have a card, so I'm going to go with Muxus. Muxus.
Nice. And I could also say Morophon, right? That's the weenie answer, though.
Favorite goblin art though is Goblin King from I don't know the 5th edition.
For me,
it's so goofy. Oh no, I was saying it's so goofy.
Yeah, I was actually going to go ahead and say Goblin King from 7th edition onward, honestly.
So what's the difference?
I just feel like there's some amount of regality to it, and that's just so weird considering it's a bunch of goblins.
Yeah. Oh, funny story involving goblins in artwork. So, I was jokingly talking about communism on my friend's stream, and he had me as the Muxus avatar, and I was like, isn't it ironic that I'm talking about communism as a king literally stepping on people?
It is great.
Yeah, I was like, no one's gonna take me seriously, and I'm glad about that.
Yes, this is what the bourgeoisie does to the proletariat.
There you go.
Oh, so good. I love it.
Is it just better red, literally, than red? Is that what our consensus is then? Interesting.
Well, what you expect? They are red in archetype.
Yeah, there you go. I think that brings us full circle, doesn't it? Perfect.
Yeah.
Yep.
And on communist goblins.
Yes. This is a good place to end. Alright, so this has been Kalkris, who is...
I am Josh Nelson. You can find me on Twitter as burning_inquiry, or you can find me on bleedingcool.com as one of their contributing writers.
As well as Thicccboiii, who is...
AKA Thicccboiii, 3 C's, 3 I's. Find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd to read my ridiculous movie reviews.
As well as Coach J-Ro on Summon Skull, host with the most. Hope that you've enjoyed yourself. This has been an incredible episode, incredible run so far. And we'll see you in Season 2.